This is Defacto Review, where we review the past top events of the previous week and debate their possible implications. Hi, I'm Terrence Edwards. And tonight, our host, Jargo Defacto.
Good evening. We are opening about our new review for this week, and we have several major events, information in the country happened last week.
Yeah, of course. The clock is ticking before the next election, but that doesn't stop Parliament from making some last-minute changes to the rules. The Parliament has actually chosen to amend the election law, removing any seats that were elected by party list. So all 76 seats will now go to direct election. In 2012, Mongolia had a mixed system, and this has been changed from 28 seats from party list and 48 seats from direct election. There has been some uproar. Smaller parties argue that the change in rules is actually favorable to the larger parties. And they also complain about the last-minute changes. Jargo, there's so much to consider here. Just to start, there used to be a 6-month buffer between the actual changes to the election law and the actual date of the election. What happened here?
Last December, they had changed this 6-month buffer. And the way the recent development had happened gives me impression that this is very deliberately articulated scenario of election is happening in this country. Why? Because just few days, actually less than 50 days before the election, they change complete rule of game. And now that we have 76 small voting circle, we call it. And what happened is now every party nominee have a good chance to win as soon as this man rather popular or well-known. People will consider the individual, not rather than political party. That's usually this scenario gives.
The individual, yeah. And
this is, it shows that how fragile, how immature is political parties in this country. We thought with this proportional majoritarian system we will have, or we will grow political parties into a more mature level, which did not happen first. Secondly, what the people are not happy about is these candidates, 28 of them out of 76 seats, who came through the political parties' lists, who were not elected directly from the people. That was the cause of change, right? And these people have not justified the expectations. Why? If they are truly leaders of their political parties, then they could change the quality of their political parties during these 4 years, which did not happen.
Didn't.
And more than that, the internal democracy of Mongolian large political parties, I'm not saying about smaller one even, but the large political parties are so bad that even the heads of the political parties are running away of discussing or calling their annual meetings or whatever is their board meetings.
Yeah, caucus.
Yep. And so, the last one is, this time again it shows how Mongolians in general and political parties in particular prepare big projects. They just change a day before everything. What does that mean? Without long-term planning, you change whole political system of the country just for the sake of being elected by all means only themselves. So these 3 observations are my thoughts for this recent political structure election change.
As an outsider looking in, the question that really comes to my mind is, why isn't this a part of the Constitution? Wouldn't that solve this problem of constantly tinkering with the rules?
Well, see, they have been discussing about changes in the constitutions in the country, where they found, first of all, to change particular provisions called double deal, or parliamentarians having cabinet seats.
You're speaking about the provision that would prevent an MP from also having a ministry seat.
Yes, and they have been discussing it for a long time. At the end, they did not change.
Yeah.
And that explains why they are not making substantial changes in constitutions and the political structure in the country. Why? Because they still want to have this double deal. And I think new cabinet will have more chance to be the parliament member to be a cabinet member now, because there is any provisions in the law forbidding that.
Yeah. And just so our viewers know, the double Del law, that's actually referring to the traditional robes Mongolian wears. That's what the name Del comes from. Okay, but that's not the last concern with the new election coming up in June. There's also been some concern because two parties have actually been removed from the contest. The Civil Will Green Party, as well as the National Labor Party, were not included on a list of who will compete for the election. So, Jargal, we're looking at more changes to the political scene here with these smaller parties. So the Civil Will Green Party, they're actually a part of the coalition government. The National Labor Party, they're a quickly growing popular party. So does this make you suspicious, this last minute change?
Well, it does. Now, so you have seen just now the election committee head, which was explaining why two political parties were excluded. They were refused to be registered, which is this Civil Will Party and the National Labor Party. By the way, both parties, remember, last Santmaral poll, they have been occupying number 4, number 5 positions after 3 major parties.
Really?
Yes.
So really shooting
and they
up in
are
the
cut
polls.
them off by they found zillions of reasons why they should not be cut off. It shows, first, when you have 76 constituency, and when you have very hard time to make a coalition, because now the election will be based on individual, and you exclude number 3, 4 parties, and I think People's Party are eliminating itself now with the leave of major heads of these political parties. And now the major party, Democratic Party and People's Party, are going to be staying there only as a party. The remaining will be very small, statistically unimportant political parties, like last poll shows. And these two, which were excluded, were statistically important. Remember, 3 to 5% they were voted by the poll. So by excluding them, you are now cleaning the road of making easier coalition for after the next election.
Yeah.
First, I think. Secondly, with all this changes, though, it is more difficult to create cabinet, to establish new cabinet. And remember the case of Belgium, where because exactly the same reason of small fractions power, they could not form the cabinet for more than 1 year, during which the whole previous cabinet was working as an acting cabinet, which took a lot of discussions there. So
a lot of wasted time.
Very similar kind of situation that might be there. One. Second, my observation is election committee of Mongolia is doing whatever the ruling party is asking them to do. It was the same with the People's Party had power, and now with Democratic Party, because both political parties are nominating their own, one of the high-ranking leaders or former ministers as a head of election committee. The election committee should be electorate committee. It should be consisting of voters, not the political parties that we are electing. So it's very absurd to have them as election committee. So it should be electoral committee. And we were talking about that. The society was discussing it, but they did not make proper amendments into the law. So this is the second, my thought. The third, you know what will happen after 4 years? Now, Mongolians will be again disappointed with these two political parties, whoever comes, because we have been disappointed already with both of them, and separately too, because they never have been delivering what they have been promised. If they are delivering, they will at the cost of us again. So, after 4 years, Mongolian voters will be more eager to vote only two large political parties. So it may push to major political party and opposition party structure in the political arena of Mongolia.
What would you do with $1 billion to improve your country? That's the question the government now has to consider, now that the final details have been wrapped up for a $1 billion credit line from the Export-Import Bank of India. Indian President Narendra Modi first proposed the credit line, which would be used mainly, well, exclusively for infrastructure projects during his visit last year to Ulaanbaatar. So, right now, my concern is there's been a statement from the World Bank that Mongolia really has to concentrate on being wise with any new debt it takes out. I think you know a little bit about the details of this borrowing. How should Mongolia really proceed?
Well, you are referring to the 1 billion line of credits that Mongolian government signed. And according to Economic Times newspaper of India from May 3, it says Exim Bank of India had signed agreement on April 28th with Mongolia on $1 billion USD, the largest one for export of India. India has similar line of credits with 63 countries.
And this is the second largest it's ever offered for any country.
And it has altogether $15 billion credit line with 63 countries.
Wow.
And out of which 1 billion is only to this small nation like Mongolia. But we should understand that this one is according to this Indian Economic Times, it says Mongolian one is a line of credits for developing railways and related infrastructure in Mongolia. For that money, Exim Bank will reimburse 100% of any contract value to the Indian exporters upfront on shipment of equipment and good provisions of services, which means whatever we take with this $1 billion, we import everything from India, because that money is to go to Indian exporters. And it says also, because this Exim Bank function is to provide risk-free, non-resource export financing options to Indian domestic exporters. So one is to be here rather careful, because what kind of equipment we will receive from India? Who will be independent third-party evaluation company that this service or goods are worth of that and this. So I think because it's our long-term, our credit, we should know exactly what this government is receiving as a loan. And unfortunately, it will happen when we pay. It's long-term, soft loan. So we need. It shows that Mongolia needs more public surveillance, public monitoring of those foreign debts that any government is taking, in particular before they go election.
So transparency would, of course, be key here.
That's the key issue of Mongolian governance: transparency.
Glass accounts.
And then with the transparency, we should go accountable. We should hold accountable. And we don't discuss about, for example, broadly, what had happened to all these bonds, proceeds we have received, we have been using.
Over $2 billion in money borrowed.
So whatever government accountability is there should be a third-party auditing system, not state auditing system, which is always like election committee commission under the control of the ruling party. They nominate people only what they like, whom they like, and who will listen to them.
Real quick, can you name any projects that you think would be a good target for this kind of credit?
Well, for this particular credit, it says infrastructure, railways and related infrastructure, it says. Now we're discussing about railways construction for 261 kilometers from Oyu Tolgoi through Oyu Tolgoi to China. But now this Tavan Tolgoi, let's say, now recently they have signed a contract that Mongolian company, the boss was saying very proudly that we Mongolians can do. But okay, they can do, supposedly. Then, if say they make in 2 years that railways, and we still have to pay for that railways our loan, right? But what happens if China is not receiving basically all this our coal? Do we connect that loan, which goes for the railways constructions, with the commitment of buyer? Can we agree the price now? These are the issues nobody is talking about. I'm worried. I think you asked me, most feasible project today is Tavan Tolgoi power stations.
Power stations,
which immediately can supply after a construction building. It take another 3-4 years. After that building, they will immediately sell electricity to Tavan Tolgoi, which is Oyu Tolgoi, which is buying now from China.
Speaking of Oyu Tolgoi, our viewers may remember last week we discussed a $4.4 billion project financing that was to go to an expansion at the mine. We heard last week that it had been approved by all 3 boards, from Oyu Tolgoi Mining Unit, the Turquoise Hill shareholder, and that company's majority owner, Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto's next CEO, Jean-Sébastien Jacques, was in Hambaget at the mine last Saturday, and he was with an inspection along with Prime Minister Sakambilik and other government officials. Real quick, can you go over some of the benefits that we are expecting from bullet points on this expansion project?
Well, the importance of this project you cannot measure. So important because first, it's the largest project now running, along with Erdenet, which is established already. But OT is unique. It's close to the border, the value is higher, etc. And the issue is not that every year they agreed $4 billion financing by a major 20 banks, right? And the board, first time OT, as you said, the 3 board had agreed to approve $5.3 billion total cost of the project. So far. So that they have agreed. But remember, the major point before of discussions or different opinions were the cost.
Cost growth.
And this time, we should make sure that they've watched their cost properly on 2 sides. But my concern is, at the election, if they will change, if election will be in favor of different political party than today, or People's Party or any other party, they will again try to change, and most probably will change the board members of a Mongolian side. And then it will give for the new board members certain interpretation of what they think, where the costs are running over, and they will find certain reasons to raise an issue. So if it is repeated again, we're going to stop again the second large project. So hopefully it is not going to happen again in Mongolia, and this large project will take properly off, as they are planning and they are talking now. I have seen many leaders are signing, good agreement, shaking hands, and that agreement later on don't follow by political reasons. So hopefully it is not this time. We cannot afford it at this time of economic hardship now. And down the road, as we know, everything will depend on this particular project. If it goes well, price is stable, then we will have less hardship. Otherwise, we will have even worse situation.
Our last point for the evening is money got a little bit cheaper in Mongolia. The central bank has just cut its policy rate to 10.5%. That rate, which is the base for all interest on lending in the country, was lowered with the reasons given of low inflation over the last 9 months of about 1.7%, and also an expectation of more foreign investment to come into the country. So I think this is kind of an abstract thing for a lot of our viewers. Can you really kind of get to the nut of what this means for the economy, lowering this policy rate?
Well, unfortunately, not that much. Central Bank of Mongolia is to have stable monetary policy, in particular to control inflation. Inflation in the country came to the 7.6 level, not necessarily because the policy, just because overall spending had shrunk a lot due to this economic turmoil and the your boost and boom and bust of mining circle. So we should assume that we should understand that that's the major reason. First. Second, 10.5% is not that much substantial for Mongolian commercial banks to alternate.
Not enough.
To give to the economy. You know why? Because in Mongolia, capital market is dominated, financial market is dominated by monetary market.
Okay.
Not capital market. So as a result, what happens is banks are the major 95% of the economic financial player. What they do now is they are buying government domestic bonds for 3 months, 6 months, at the rate about 15 to 16%. And when you can buy any of them, in particular large banks.
Yeah.
They buy $500 million or $500 billion size of Mongolian government domestic bond. Why they should take care of 10.5%? It is not substantial for them. And the reason why the central bank cannot go lower is the saving rate in this country for 1 year is 14%.
Yeah.
So remember the saving interest rate should be minus inflation rate.
Yes.
The difference would be the real interest rate. So that will be too much big profit for many people. But however, this 10.5% doesn't immediately reflect in the economy. Even without that, what the major factor of the domestic bond, it will be reflected even a year or after.
Yeah.
So the financial market of the country is still dependent on the commercial banks, which monopolistically run the whole economy, which refuse to entrance of foreign commercial bank, which can provide 8% interest rate of loan with 8 interest rate to Mongolian private companies. And by the way, a couple of days ago, Mongolian businesses met the head of Mongolian Bank Association, Mr. Unumbat, where the Mongolian companies were very strongly opposing the super profit by Mongolian commercial banks, which must be connected with politicians. That was the anger of Mongolian private businesses.
Okay, great. Well, that's our program for the evening. We hope that our briefings will give you a head start for the week ahead.
And we really would like to hear from you. We try to make first-time independent, non-political major events review in English with Terence every week at 8:30, and we will post it on website from tomorrow, jargaldefacto.com, and it will be in, also it is 30 minutes early, it is in Mongolian. So please send us your opinion to this website, and we will meet again next week and discuss the other events, because this week is going to be a very interesting week also, because this same other events are coming. So let's meet in a week. Thank you very much for watching us.
I'll be
you.
here. Good night, all in Batar.